Welcome to my live Facebook and YouTube book reading today. So it's the first time I'm on Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, hi everyone. So my name is Beth Shepherd and I'm children's author, so author of these two books. And I am doing book reading sessions. So over the next few weeks, I'll be reading every chapter from this book and then be moving on to this book. So just to keep you guys entertained while we're on lockdown. And so I hope you're enjoying my book so far. So I just want to say hi to two special people who I know are watching. So hopefully I pronounced your names right. So Kush and Anai, beautiful names. So hi guys, it's nice to have you joining me. So yeah, we've been reading this book. We're now on chapter 5. So I know Josh and Zara have been watching faithfully every week, so well done. So if you have been watching, let me know you've been keeping up with the story. So this book, Ernie Gonzalez, The Determined Dreamer. I'm wondering how many of you guys are determined dreamers. So I know I am definitely a determined dreamer, so I think we all need to be determined dreamers. So let me just recap what's been happening in the story. So first chapter, Ernie wakes up, splat, he'd fallen splat into a soggy, rotten avocado and wakes up feeling like he's just given up on his dreams. And then the story goes back to what happened to him prior to giving up on his dreams. So it talks about how he set off to find a place called the Olive Garden, which was his dream, and how he thought that it was going to be super easy, but actually it was really quite difficult. And he didn't expect it to be quite so difficult. Wondering if you remember who inspired Ernie to have this dream. So someone gave him the idea. So he listened to stories of someone else's dream and it gave him the dream. So I wonder if you can remember. So yeah, let me just tell you. So it's his grandfather. So he listened to his grandfather's stories. So he lived on a dusty plant pot by the side of the road and really wanted a better life for himself. So he decided to be brave and the only one in his family to go for this adventure because no one else believed in it. So Ernie is definitely a determined dreamer. So then he set off on his journey and he made a plan. Oh, he had a rucksack. Can you imagine a snail with a rucksack? I think that would be so great to find one in the garden. So cute. Anyway, I love snails, by the way. So he did a little drawing here, a little doodle of his plan that he thought would happen and get him to the Olive Garden. And he just thought it would be so easy. He would just start and there'll be no challenges, no problems. But life isn't always like that. Okay, there's challenges. And next chapter is the fiesta, which I read on Tuesday. So in the fiesta, which is Spanish for festival, Ernie is in the box of vegetables, heading off on his journey, thinking that he's just going to be thrown over the wall and then he could just slide down the river and come to Olive Garden. But however, if you listened last on Tuesday, you will remember that that wasn't quite what happened. And Ernie found himself being taken to the fiesta instead of down at the river. He had forgotten that it was festival day when he set off on his journey. So do you remember I set you an activity to, I use quite a lot of senses. So do you remember we talked last session about senses? So 5 senses, hoping you're all shouting them out at home. So sight, smell, sound, taste and touch. So I use quite a lot of descriptions of the sounds that Ernie could hear outside the box, and those sounds reminded him or let him know that he wasn't going where he wanted to go. But I set you a challenge, a writing challenge, to change it instead of sound, to change it to smell. So you could use the smell of the paella cooking, the smell of coffee brewing and the fiesta, the smell of ladies' perfumes or men's aftershave or whatever smells you might find at a festival. I'm sure you guys have got some really good ideas. And those smells were the things that notified him or let him know that he was going the wrong way instead of the sound. I'm sure he would have heard sounds too, but I just wanted you to practice using a different sense in your writing. So well done if you had a go at that challenge. So good on you. So next chapter, are you guys ready? So Ernie, at the end of this chapter, has fallen into the soggy, rotten avocado, and that's where the beginning of the book started. So we are going to go back now. Ernie goes back to present time, where he has found himself in the fridge and on a plant pot in someone's house. This chapter is called The Determined Dreamer. Even though it had been a week since Ernie had found himself in the avocado, in the vegetable box inside the fridge, the events of last Thursday still haunted him. Since coming to after passing out, he had been living on the windowsill in someone's kitchen, in what seemed to be a ready-made snail home. He had no idea where he was, where the kitchen was, or why he was there. In short, he was well and truly baffled. Bright sunlight broke through the clouds, interrupting his thoughts. As he stared longingly at the beautiful Spanish mountains and the blue sky and sunshine, it dawned on him just how trapped he really was. So I think I need to pause there and just show you this awesome drawing by the illustrator, Lisa Buckridge. So let me just show you. Zoom in so hopefully you guys can see it. Yeah, so you can see Ernie on his plant pot, staring outside the window at the beautiful Spanish countryside, wishing that he was free. So, where am I? It had been ages since he had breathed fresh air or felt the sun on his green, slimy skin. It felt like a lifetime since he had spoken to another snail, and the loneliness was beginning to press in on him. He pressed his squidgy nose up to the window against the wick glass and let out a long sigh, causing it to steam up. In this strange new home, Ernie seemed to have everything he needed, as well as a lot of wonderful things he didn't even know that he needed. His house was strangely perfect, just the right size for a snail and warm and cozy. Perfect. Just inside was a snug sofa and a bookshelf full of delightful snail stories to read. So can you imagine, in his plant pot, amongst all the mud, he also had a snail sofa and a bookshelf and lots of things for him to read and to do. I wonder what else he had in there. So if you guys like drawing, maybe you could draw what it looks like inside the plant pot for the snail. So everything would have to be very small. Across the hall was a drawing room where he could sit and read or paint. And upstairs, there were 3 large bedrooms. Wow. But the strangest thing was that each room had 3 bunk beds inside. But they were all empty, reminding Ernie that he was well and truly alone. I wonder what all the beds were for. Outside the house was a large, luscious plant for him to spend all day feasting on. And if that wasn't enough, there was also a big round bowl, which was always full to overflowing with all kinds of vegetables and fruit scraps. It was idyllic. However, as nice as all this stuff was, Ernie just wasn't at ease. Something about it just seemed too perfect, too unnatural, and too far away from his dreams. For a start, he was in a human kitchen, in a human house, and that is just not right for a snail. What was even more disturbing was the fact that he still hadn't figured out who the 2 people were or what they wanted from him. There was only one thing he was certain of: he didn't trust them. Then there was the fridge, which he had named the big white box. It stood looming above him, right next to his windowsill. He looked up at it and felt a shiver run across his shell as it towered over him, casting a dark shadow over his new little snail world. It was the fridge that he had found himself in last week, and he had no plans to find himself inside it ever again. He tried desperately to forget the ordeal, but every time they opened it, a strong blast of icy cold wind would rush towards him, and if he was not stuck down, it would blow him high into the air. Over the last week, he had cleverly learned to survive this windstorm by using his best suction power to cling to his plant whenever he saw someone approaching the fridge. He watched them visit that awful white box, several times every day, and wondered what they kept in it. We know what they kept in it, yummy food. However, he had decided that it was a waste of energy to think about that. All he cared about was finding a way to escape this situation before he found himself in an even worse one. He considered his new surroundings once more and realized how out of his depth he felt. Ernie was a dreamer, and a determined dreamer at that. Once he had set his heart on something, he would do everything in his power to make it happen, no matter where it led him. But right now, it seemed that following his dreams had led him all the way to a dead end. He knew that he had to escape. Yet after a whole week, he was still puzzled and no closer to devising a cunning plan. Okay, so end of chapter here. So next session, next Tuesday, we'll be looking at what happens next. Ernie sees daylight. So there'll be another character introduced in the story. So I think you'll really enjoy that. So, author tip. So my tip today is, in the story, do you remember that I refer to the fridge not as the fridge, but as the big white box? Do you remember that? So that's something that I love to do with writing. Rather than just writing the man or the dog or the fridge, I like to break it up a bit. So sometimes we need to write the man, the dog, if our story is about a dog. But I think it's really great fun to vary it in your story. So rather than writing the dog or he or she, just moving around those few things, or the man, he, all the time in your story, just to vary it up a little bit. We could describe him when referring to him. So let me give examples. So I have examples. So if you were writing about a dog, okay, in your story, at one point you could say the four-legged animal. We kind of have an idea what it's about, what it is. And if you have mentioned that if the reader knows you're talking about a dog in your story, then they will know what you are talking about. So I hope that makes sense. So it just breaks up and varies your sentences and your descriptions. So my activity for you today will require a pencil, and a piece of paper. So I hope that you have one right now, or you can replay these videos later. So I have got 5 objects that I want you to describe in a different way. And your challenge is you cannot use the name of the object. So I'm looking over there because I've written them all down on the wall. So an apple. Can you describe an apple without saying an apple? So I want you to write these down. So it's a practice exercise at descriptive writing, describing the object. Okay, so it only needs to be 3 or 4 words to describe it. So a snail. Can you describe a snail without saying a snail? So think about what features are unique to a snail. So they are green, they are slimy, they are slow. So they might be words that you might want to use. A plane. Okay, have a think about what words you could use to describe a plane. A dog. So I've already used that. See if you can find a different description. A stick insect is a bit random. I don't know where that idea came from, but I think they are cute, stick insects. So I think there's quite a few ideas that you can think of in that one. And last one, a monster. Ooh, I'm going to leave that one totally up to you. So that's my tip. That's my activity. And I will be doing my next book reading next Tuesday. And I'm hoping that you guys can join me. And if not, you can always catch up and watch online later. So don't forget, if you want to find out more, check out my website. It's bethshepherd.com. And I've never asked you, but don't forget to like my Facebook page and subscribe to my YouTube video. That will be awesome. Okay, hope you guys have a great day.